So every municipality is required by law, by the Municipal Act, to have a procedures bylaw. So it is an important document that all the 444 municipalities are required to have. The purpose of the bylaw is to govern and regulate the proceedings of council and its committees. So it's really important to also identify what a procedures bylaw is not. It doesn't talk about improving relationships among councillors or the way we treat each other with respect. That falls under the Councillor Code of Conduct, which we looked at earlier in this Chairman Council. That's not the role of the procedures bylaw. It's also not about looking at the relationship between staff and council. That was in our council staff relations policy that we already approved. It's also not an education tool to help the public understand the role of council. There's a lot more effective ways to do that and communicate that out than using a quasi-legal document like this. So the procedural bylaw is intended as a primarily internal document that is for councillors to know what the rules are when it comes to council meetings and committee meetings. It's also not a document that talks about the quality of staff reports. So it is important to know what the procedures bylaw isn't. Firstly, it's important for us to all be on the same page about what the procedures bylaw is all about. Otherwise, there is a chance that we're going to go down a number of rabbit holes and end up with a convoluted document that might not be consistent with legislation or parliamentary language, and we don't want a document that isn't consistent with the legal requirements. So Council has approved this ad hoc committee for us to review and discuss the suggestions from councillors. Members of the public can come up with some draft recommendations for Council and the public for our December meeting. And then the target is to have a revised procedures bylaw in February. So we don't want to rush through this. So a couple of the issues that I see on day one, thing is that we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Every day our staff have critical operational challenges that they have to overcome. So we've chosen this time to do a deep dive in a procedures bylaw. So the timing is not the greatest, but it is what it is, and we're here. So the bottom line, though, is that we need to remember not to ask our staff to do a whole lot extra here, and hopefully councillors here can do most of the heavy lifting on this one. We also have 4 sets of detailed submissions by members of council and several comments from the public. It's all included in the package here, so whoever sent in any information and input has been included in the council package. It is important to know that none of us were elected because of our expertise in procedures bylaw, so again, it's important to lean on some experts when we're developing a document that is this important. So that gets to the role of the clerk on this one. So it is important to get her advice and take seriously the sections of the bylaw which she advises we leave as is. And because of this, I'd suggest that we start off with the color-coded version that Carrie has put together that outlines both what is recognized parliamentary language and what is verbatim out of the Municipal Act, just to make sure that we're setting our parameters right when we get into the discussions. And I'd also suggest that we use Carrie in her role as a subject matter expert throughout this time that we're reviewing this to support the committee. So those are my initial thoughts, concerns. I think we can overcome the challenges if we do this process right. So to start things off, I would propose that Councillor McElwain chairs this committee. This committee was his idea, and he was the first councillor to put his name forward. And I think he's in the best position to steer our discussion here. Councillor Dunsmore, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'd actually prefer if Kirk was the chair as opposed to yourself, just from the opinions that I have of some of the comments I've received. But if Kirk is willing to do that, I think that's great.
Councillor McElwain, would you be willing to do that?
I would. Okay. I would.
Well, that is great. And then if that's, Carrie, do I have to do a motion about that, or can we just switch the chair? How do we do that?
No, I think we can go fairly informal, but consensus is good enough for appointing your chair. Absolutely.
Okay. So then I would like to turn it over to Councillor McElwain. If you can just help us with the process, Carrie, I'll turn it over to him and how he wants to proceed from this point forward. Thanks, Councillor
Absolutely.
McElwain.
Okay. So Carrie, are you gonna make some comments at this point, as Kelly just suggested? Or
Well, Kelly actually did a good job of introducing what the purpose of the bylaw is, and that it is definitely to govern the calling, the place, and the proceeding of a meeting. There seems to be some confusion as to what the procedural bylaw is to do, and Kelly did a good job of clarifying that. So I don't think I need to say anything else other than I'll just turn it over to you, and you can decide how we're going to plug through this.
Perfect. Okay, I just, given that I do have the opportunity to chair, and I appreciate that, I do have a comment I'd like to make as well, and that is, I have a feeling that we should be developing in terms of reference for what we are doing here with the ad hoc committee versus starting in digging and not knowing how deep the hole is going to be. I think it's important that we kind of define exactly what our intent is and how we are going to know when we're finished. And if we got through that process today, I think it would be a wonderful first step, because that is kind of important if we're going to make this bylaw work. And I think we need to identify upfront, as part of the terms of reference, what are the important things that we want to touch upon during our review of the bylaw. So, I mean, the bylaw very specifically mentions being open, and I can't see it right in front of me here, but open and transparent. So, you know, should we be putting weights on the various parts of the bylaw to say this is more important than that, or how do we want to go about making sure that all of us are in agreement? Because just to be completely blunt, I guess, I voted in favor of the deferral from the original draft, and the mayor and Councillor Dunsmore voted in favor of the original draft. So I'm not sure we're all on the same page to start with, and I'd like to make sure that we're all following the same rules to come up with a solution. Yes, please, Carrie.
Well, to your first point about the terms of reference, terms of reference are generally used in committees like advisory committees to outline their scope. When it comes to ad hoc committees are for a specific purpose, to do a specific job. And in this case, it's to review the comments and either prepare a new draft or at least present the comments that are worthy of going forward. So I'm not sure terms of reference are going to help us any more than it has already been determined that our role is to go through the comments and either prepare a new draft for council's consideration, or to streamline the comments down to what we can and cannot do. It's very clear that some of the comments are contrary to legislation. Some of the comments are, some of the suggestions are very good and can easily be incorporated, and others are certainly up to this committee to make a recommendation to council whether they are worthy of being included, or simply slow the process down, or are redundant. So I'm not sure that the terms of reference is appropriate, given the committee has a clear role here. You may want to hear from the others as to how we approach it, if they have any other ideas as to going, going page by page, step by step, or actually reviewing the draft that I prepared. what's parliamentary and what is legislated. But as far as the terms of reference go, I don't know that that's going to help us out here. We do have a specific role already identified by council.
Mayor Linton, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. It is true. I voted in favor of the original procedures bylaw, but the decision of council was to do a review. So, we have a number of submissions here. Maybe it just makes sense to go section by section, and bring the suggestions in and have a fulsome discussion by section. But at the end of the day, we get together, we can make something better than it was originally. So I'm all about making improvements to it. So I don't think there's a concern that I'm not going to be involved in good suggestions that are going to help this document get even better than it is right now. So however you decide, Councillor McElwain, to go ahead. We do have a number of submissions there. So whatever you think is the most effective way to kind of look at those and have discussions about it, and where we have outstanding questions that are going to come back to the full council. Maybe we have a parking lot or something. I don't know.
Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I think just in order to get started, and you are right, I was for the original bylaw, but if you notice, I'm the only one who didn't put in comments regarding it, because I've been trying to keep an open mind. I've done a lot of independent research in the last week, looking at other municipalities, and actually looking at some municipalities got themselves in trouble. So I think what we should do is start with Kerry, because I'd really like to know what is legislated, what is within our legal rights that we can't change and what we can. And then I think we should go through the submissions that we've got here from other councillors, and then the submissions from the public, and knock them down one at a time, because there may be things that we're allowed to change and things that we aren't. And so we can eliminate all that stuff. That will be arduous, it will be time consuming, but I think it's the way to approach it. But that decision lies with the chair.
Thank you. Okay, my one concern with going through, because I thought originally that going through kind of one section at a time, point by point, as the comments were laid out, would be the way to handle this. But then if you look at some of the comments, they're very general and they don't fit into a specific paragraph or a specific point. And so it's going to be difficult to incorporate them all where they fit the best. That's my only concern. So that's not my only concern, but it is a concern by doing it in that format. But given that the two of you would rather go that way, I'm happy with it. Just want to make sure that we don't leave something out by doing it. So we have to be very diligent about making sure we have everything covered. Councillor Dunsmore?
So what way were you thinking of doing it then? If you don't want to go through it line by line, what was your concept originally? Share that with me.
I really hadn't come up with an idea. That's why I was suggesting in terms of reference, kind of come up with a plan that we all agreed to. So I mean, if this is the plan we've all agreed to, then that will do it. But I do want to make sure that we are inclusive and incorporate or listen, read and understand all the comments that were made and make sure that we incorporate them if they make sense.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Did you want to start with Carrie and she can tell us why she put together what she put together? And then we move down and we can go into the comments and just take them. There's a lot of items here issued by residents. We take them one at a time and see what comments are pertinent, what comments aren't, and try and, I look at it as a in and out thing, and then we try to get down to something we can deal with. Does that make sense?
I would suggest that we follow the agenda as it's been laid out, and Carrie, if you would review the bylaw and what is legislated as a first step, that would be great, please.
Okay, so what I'll do is just in a nutshell, the red and yellow version that I sent out, anything in red is considered normal parliamentary procedures. They are right from, Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I'm just having some difficulty with my iPad. Are you able to put that up on the screen for us, Carrie, at all? If not, I can go through my emails and find it there. I just have to get out of I'm having some real issues with iCompass right now.
It might be faster for me to actually send it to you again.
Okay, do that, and then I'll pull it up on my screen, and because iCompass is giving me some really strange things.
Okay,
and it's all in Chinese, Lisa, just so you know.
Neil, just while Carrie's sending that to you, maybe we can have a look at it when we're not in the middle of a meeting.
Yeah, sure. It just doesn't help me in a meeting to look at something when I got Chinese writing all over it. So.
Okay, I just sent it, but so I'll just keep going as far as just the overview goes. So as far as the what's highlighted in red are again parliamentary procedures that are part of the they're either found in Robert's Rules of Order or Bernot's. They are common to Canadian government, which is based on the British Parliament. So anything red is nothing I've made up. It's right out of parliamentary procedure. Anything that's in yellow, there is a legislative authority to do it, or there is it is actually part of right out of the Municipal Act. I would either have cut the section out in its entirety, or I may have paraphrased it, but I have referred to it as legislation. One thing I should maybe explain that Council does it makes its decisions because we are creatures of the province. So we have to have the legislative authority to do what we do. If there is no legislative authority, then we do not have the power to impose something that we are not given the legislative authority to do. And there are a few things that people have suggested, councillors as well as the public, that are contrary to legislation, in that it would be holding you to a higher standard than the legislation requires. So we would call that contrary to legislation. And if you include something like that, then you are not in compliance with the legislation, and you are not upholding your oath of office if you proceed doing things that are basically against the law. So that's basically what I've said. I've included the sections of the Municipal Act for your reference, and as we go through, I can certainly read those sections or clarify it. I mean, the Municipal Act is not entirely clear in many ways, but we've been using the Municipal Act for years. Procedural bylaws are not new. They're actually really based on old school British parliamentary procedures. We've tried to modernize many things and use modern language to make it user-friendly. We were criticized in some of the comments for doing that, and then on the other hand, we were also criticized for being too old school. So I guess that's up for Council to decide as to whether we want to modernize it and make it user-friendly, or go back to using parliamentary wording. So short of that, I think I wonder if we should go through the public's comments first, and maybe we can have a discussion, and we can determine first of all whether it is legislated, contrary, a good idea. We could maybe just use a scoring system on the comments. It's just a suggestion.
You would rather do that than go through where you've highlighted, I guess. is what you're suggesting.
Well, I am, because I think the specific comments that people put in, if we compare what that comment to the section of my bylaw, it might be easier to see, first of all, what they've said, and then why, whether it's red or yellow, and whether it is, because anything that isn't red or yellow is really up for grabs, because it's not either parliamentary or legislated. I don't know. I'm sort of looking for some direction here, but I think if we go through the comments, refer to mine, determine and score each comment as to whether it's contrary to legislation, whether it's a good suggestion, and then we can determine whether to use the comment, or it's invalid, or we could park it in a parking lot as Mayor Linton will review later.
Okay. Well, in that case, we are going to have to make a decision on which submission came first, which one we want to go through first. And I think probably doing it in a sequence that they were received is probably the fairest way to do it. So can you tell us what that is, Carrie or Lisa?
Certainly. I think we put them on the agenda in the order in which they were received,
okay.
The dates in which they were received. So we have Mr. Jackson's November 2nd submission first.
Okay. So.
Now,
and so if reading Mr. Jackson's submission from that date, it primarily has to deal with conflict of interest being defined as something more than just pecuniary conflict of interest, I believe, if I remember correctly. Personal interest is included instead of just pecuniary interest. And that was echoed in a few different submissions. So let's discuss that. Carrie, you can tell us your feeling on that off the top.
Okay. I can clearly indicate that, again, the Municipal Act and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act is very clear as to what a pecuniary interest is. The suggestion that Mr. Jackson makes, where he refers it in the Code of Conduct, I think he pulls the word out of the Code of Conduct. However, in my opinion, the municipal conflict of interest is the pecuniary interest is what the legislation identifies as a conflict. The Municipal Conflict of Interest Act also tells us how the clerk is to receive, record, and track conflict of interest. So again, it's spelled out how the clerk is to do that, that a registry is to be maintained. So in my opinion, what Mr. Jackson has proposed is contrary to legislation and should not be included.
Contrary to or slightly outside of? I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking this question is because I went through this myself. I guess I was the only one on the call that was here at the time, but when I first was elected as a councillor, the battle for gravel pit in Inverha was in the works, and I was threatened by the council from the other side, saying if I participated, they would sue me for conflict of interest. I spent a lot of personal money to get a lawyer's opinion on that, and I was told that yes, indeed, they can sue me for a conflict of interest, and that's outside of a pecuniary interest. That's a conflict of interest that very clearly stated in the lawyer's opinion to me was that I wasn't necessarily in agreement with the majority of the citizens. And, or I wasn't, I'd have to go back and read the actual words, but the point is that that conflict of interest was a personal conflict of interest. It was not a pecuniary conflict of interest. And so, as I say, the lawyer at that time gave me that opinion. It seems to be very close to the same opinion that Mr. Jackson has, and a couple of others mentioned in their comments as well. So I question whether the pecuniary conflict of interest is the only one that we should be identifying.
Well, again, Bill 168 was given royal assent after that, and conflict of interest, the integrity commissioner, the advice given, all of that changed in Bill 168. What I think there is some confusion is, councillors, it's conflict of pecuniary interest as defined in the Act. There is also council using their position and influence to advance personal interests on behalf of others. That is in there as well, but that is not defined as a different interest. It's defined as using your position as influencing to advance interests of others. So again, I will maintain my position that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act identifies pecuniary interest, and the process by which that is the integrity commissioner, how people challenge that conflict of interest, and that the integrity commissioner now has the ability to give people advice. But it doesn't change the fact that the Act is clear on pecuniary interest. It does not give any other definitions. Therefore, we could not hold council to any higher standard than the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act does.
So, just to clarify what you just said, there is an identifiable conflict of interest if you are using your position to for any personal reason, or even to further the interests of a friend or relative. That is a conflict of interest, but we can't define it in the procedure bylaw. Is that basically what you're saying?
I didn't say it was a conflict of interest. What I said is that is in the Act as something that councillors need to be aware of, and that they cannot use their position to further the personal interest of, and then there's a definition of who those people are. So I am not an expert on the Conflict of Interest Act. It is my opinion that what is proposed is contrary to the legislation.
Where in the procedure is that covered if it's not under the conflict of interest?
It is outlined in your code of conduct. I think your integrity commissioner included it in your code of conduct. Which I don't have a copy of it with me, but it is in your code of conduct, the definition of personal interest and the indirect and direct conflict. And again, he is the expert in conflict of interest, certainly not me, but my opinion is that what Mr. Jackson is proposing is outside of the legislative authority that council has. To impose a different conflict than what the legislation allows in pecuniary, being financial. We can certainly get a legal opinion for you if you're not comfortable with that. Before incorporating anything like that into a bylaw, I would suggest that would be imperative. If you don't believe me, basically.
Councillor Dunsmore or Mayor Linton, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I do have a comment. In the research that I did about this, it stated that you can't put in the procedures bylaw, you can't hold councillors to a higher standard than what is they're legally required to do. So that's why you couldn't change the conflict of interest. The research I did suggested that a councillor code of conduct is a different thing. You can add things to a councillor code of conduct, because then you can make it a little bit more tailored to your municipality. But the research I did on this section, on this recommendation, was that you can't hold councillors higher than the legal standard, which is laid out in provincial legislation.
Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people on this too, and there's the Municipal Act, and then there's the conflict of interest legislation that governs both of that. And you're stepping into gray area if you put this in your procedural bylaw. You can put it in your code of conduct if we want to go back and revisit the code of conduct, although nobody seemed to have an appetite for that. It's got to be in there if you're going to make it any more stringent. But we have to be careful that we can't usurp the governing body of legislation, which is the provincial government's Municipal Act and Conflict of Interest Act. They rule the day on conflict of interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and that's where we have to follow. So for us to put it in a procedural bylaw, I don't see the. I just think it's outside its scope of authority. So we'd have to visit that in another area, but not the procedural bylaw in my book.
Okay. Carrie, you suggested that we could get a legal opinion on that. Is that something that we can add to our list of things to do for as we go through?
Well, what I'm going to suggest is by the time we're done, it's going to need a legal review.
Yeah.
In its entirety. So if you agree to put it in, then that's what we do. If we agree to keep it out, then we move forward. But I would think a legal review of any new document, especially if you are not accepting my suggestions on authority, then it needs to be run through a legal process.
Okay. So someplace in there, I'd like to make sure that we get an opinion on the non-pecuniary conflict of interest, I guess, basically, just to make sure that, because I say there's at least 2 or 3 people who have identified that as an issue. It was a personal issue for me, so things may have changed in the last 14 years, but it's still what is deemed to be a problem to the public. I want to make sure that we cover that in the procedure bylaw to make sure that the public understands that we are doing what we're legally are able to do. So I believe that basically covers all of the first submission by Mr. Jackson. And we can go to the second submission.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Right.
Just as we go through this, if we can define, if we're going to have a discussion and not, and then leaving it open, I do think we need some direction from the committee on each of these with regards to what are we doing with it. You had mentioned you'd like to see a legal review on that particular issue, and yet I heard Councillor Dunsmore and Mayor Linton speaking that they don't feel it needs to be in the bylaw. So I think that's the role of the ad hoc committee, is to make decisions as to what they will move forward going into the revised or not into the revised, and making that submission to council.
Okay, thank you, Andy. My comment there is that we will leave it as it is, but I would like to get a legal opinion on the non-pecuniary conflict of interest. And if it should not be in the procedure bylaw, then I'd like to get that legal opinion. But if it can be in the procedure bylaw, I think it should be there. So that's my own opinion. If Councillor Dunsmore and Mayor Linton disagree, well, I guess it's a vote one way or the other what we're going to ask staff to do.
Yeah.
So does the suggestion to have a legal opinion on a non-pecuniary conflict of interest, do either of you agree with that, or would you rather just go forward as it is?
Through you, Chair, I'd be fine with getting a legal opinion on it.
Thank you.
I just want to, say that conflict of interest is always in everything we do. It comes from the Municipal Act, the Conflict of Interest Act, so it always has to govern what we do. I'm just saying we don't need to change it and change what it means and reinterpret it in this particular piece of legislation. I don't think we have the right. So I guess what I'd have to agree that we need to get a legal opinion to fix or to sort out who's right and who's wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just suggest we park it, because I'm anticipating that this is not the only item that would need to be reviewed in that regard. So let's put it in a parking lot for now, and we'll develop a list. But I guess, first of all, does it belong in the procedural bylaw? I'm hearing that you're saying that you say yes. And secondly, we will put it in a parking lot for further review. Is that correct?
Well, I want to make sure you know that I'm saying no. It doesn't need to be in this bylaw. That we always are governed by the Municipal Act. But I don't think it needs to be in this bylaw. Yes, park it and get a legal opinion of it, but I want to be clear, it doesn't belong in this bylaw.
Okay.
So that is the direction, and Carrie is to follow your own suggestion, park it and get a legal opinion. And now I think we can go on to the second submission by Mr. Jackson. Okay, this starting off with his first point here. That the role of the chair and a member, basically suggesting that the chair should vacate, he must vacate the chair to a member to move a motion or to debate a question. And Carrie, how does that fit with anything that you've highlighted, red, yellow, or not highlighted?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what, but what I can tell you is, you know, the chair is to maintain a neutrality. So there is merit in requiring or suggesting that the mayor, the chair, or the presiding officer, depending on whether it's council or committee, step down if it is something. I don't agree with if it's moving a motion or if it's to speak to something. The mayor, the presiding officer, the chair is a member of the body, therefore has the same rights as the other individuals. However, let's, for instance, say the mayor is bringing forward a notice of motion, or the mayor is bringing forward new business, or the mayor feels extremely passionate about something that he needs to explain and a grandiose soliloquy, then it is, by all means, it has merit that he turn the chair over, not to another member, but to the acting mayor or the vice chair, in order that he can speak freely or she can speak freely and take the 10 minutes or the time that others are given the opportunity. So yes, there is merit in including a provision to under certain circumstances, but where they are simply moving or speaking to something, I think they have every right as a member of council to do those. Where the line is drawn is where it's perhaps a notice of motion, or it is something, new business being brought forward. There is merit in turning the chair over to enacting, to give the mayor that opportunity to speak freely and at length to an item.
Councillor Dunsmore, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I want to thank Carrie for that interpretation, because the first read I was thinking that this shouldn't be at all, because the mayor is elected, and even though you're serving as the chair of the meeting, you must have a vote. You have to have a vote. But if they're put through a motion of their own, a notice of motion, and something they're passionate about, they should, out of good conscience, step aside. But the line that states or debate a question, the mayor is elected by everybody in the township, and the mayor has a right, he or she has a right to argue their point or their side of a question in a debate. They should never have to relinquish the chair. If we did that, there wouldn't be anybody who'd be able to be chair, because we all have to have a vote. We all have to have an opinion. But if it's your notice of motion, you shouldn't be chairing the meeting.
Mayor Linton.
I just want to clarify with Carrie, the term that is used here. The chair must always remain strictly neutral. It sounds like the speaker role, and is this coming out of anything? Like, I'm not a speaker. I'm not there to just be the referee. Like, I was voted by the majority of residents of Center Wellington to be the mayor. So I'm not a speaker. I'm not playing Ted Arnott's role. So is there anything that's legislated in the wording or anything that's accurate in the wording that I have to remain strictly neutral?
No, it's definitely parliamentary, and that's where the word speaker comes in, that parliamentary procedures are used at all levels of government, at all committee levels. And that's where your Speaker of the House comes in. Your Speaker, allows everybody else to speak, but rarely expresses his own opinion or her own opinion. However, does have that right. But no, there is nothing in the Municipal Act. This is definitely a parliamentary procedure thing. In order to maintain the, like the presiding officer governs the meeting, controls the meeting, is to ensure certain aspects of the meeting. Therefore, it's rare often that you need to vote, even need to speak, but you certainly have that right to do so. It's definitely parliamentary. There is nothing legislated.
I guess the only question I have, Carrie or Mayor Linton, I guess, there are times when you, as the mayor and chair, will perhaps open a meeting or during a meeting have a talk about something that you are passionate about that is kind of outside of the discussion of the council member or the other council members. And how would that be interpreted then under this? I mean, I agree that the mayor has to be able to vote, so I don't think that should be a question. But to provide opinion outside of that normal discussion of all of council, is that something that should be in this under the same rules as moving a motion?
Through you, again, in any meeting, if the procedures are laid out, and anyone feels that perhaps the mayor is taking some liberties that they don't agree with, any member can always challenge the chair and challenge the proceedings on either a point of privilege or a point of order. Normally, the presiding officer is given a fair bit of leeway in that it's his job to provide the leadership and his job to run the meeting. If you put these kinds of things, little things in there, then you limit the ability of the chair to control the meeting. But he does have, or she has, every right to participate in the meeting, is a member of the meeting, and has been elected to do so. So it's a balance, and a good chair, a good mayor will find that balance and will rarely be challenged. However, in the case that, let's say he is chairing the meeting and he's brought forward a notice of motion, someone can on a point of order say, your worship, we really think it would be appropriate for you to turn the chair over to the acting mayor at this time so that you can properly speak to your motion, and therefore the control of the meeting is out of your hands. It's a balance, but the presiding officer has that role to preside over the meeting, and whether people, if he speaks first instead of other people, then it's the member's job to call him on that if that is against procedure, or to allow it to happen as the head of council or as the head of the committee. He has that right in that leadership role.
So, just on that topic, then, should we include in the role of the members, or of the role of council, that basic concept that council are responsible for ensuring that the mayor, or the chair, I should say, is doesn't go outside the bounds of his role in as the chair?
That is already in there under point of order. That has never changed. That has always been the case, in that if you feel that that the presiding officer is not following the rules of procedure or is taking liberties, then it is every member's right to call him or her on it. On a point of order, Madam Chair, I feel that you are taking liberties that are outside of the procedural bylaw. Then the chair will say, well, section 3.3 allows me to do blank. And then the member will say, well, I challenge that decision. And then it will be a vote of the body as to whether to uphold the ruling of the chair or side with the member. It's simple parliamentary procedure. You have always had that right. You will always have that right. But again, you must leave your head of council or your head of a committee the ability to speak as he has been elected to do so.
Okay. And I agree with that 100%. I guess my point, Carrie, was the point of order doesn't specifically talk to this point, and do we need that in the bylaw, or are we assumed that we will understand it as far as challenging the chair? Because that isn't something that is necessarily obvious, certainly to a new councillor for sure, and possibly, you know, to any of council, that it isn't obvious that the chair is easily challenged.
Well, and I wouldn't say he's easily challenged. I would pick your battles, and again, it doesn't happen very often. Normally, you know, there's normally a procedure bylaw sits on the shelf, and nobody even looks at it, or nobody even uses it until such time as somebody feels liberties are taken, or there is something peculiar going on, or you have a dysfunctional council. Usually during orientation, we go through this, and I think we gave council a placemat that included how you would use a point of order and a point of privilege. Perhaps more education needs to be done on it, and maybe mock meetings where staff can show council how to use these procedures properly. That could certainly be done, even after we have a bylaw, a procedure bylaw in place with some of these things better clarified. I thought we had done a pretty good job as to clarifying how to use a point of order, a point of privilege. But certainly we could definitely do some education in the future once we have a bylaw that we are happy with.
Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that point, that the point of order is our ability to interrupt the chair when we think the behavior is being inappropriate. What I liked about this new procedural bylaw when it came out from Carrie and her staff was that often the chair can then just rule your point of order out of order, and you're shut down. But the new procedural bylaw allowed for that member, so I could turn around and say, point of order, your worship, and challenge the mayor or the chair of the meeting on whatever they wanted. They could turn around and say, well, I rule you out of order. Then I can say I want to engage the rest of council and my fellow councillors, and by majority vote whether or not my point of order is legitimate. And then we all get to vote in and say, you know what, your worship, his point is good. So hear it, and let's move on. So that gives an extra layer of authority to council that we never had before. And that was one of the changes that was made to the procedural bylaw that I saw that I was really impressed with. So that's my 2 cents on that, but thank you for putting that in there, Carrie.
Okay, it's always been a right, and it's always been a procedural, something that's permitted procedurally. We've just kind of clarified it, or at least tried to anyways. But it's always been there. Everyone's always had the right to do it.
Marilyn, any comments?
Just that, I know councillors around the table are given lots of opportunities to state their opinion. And, I'd hate to set up a situation where the one person who was elected by individuals across all the different wards doesn't have an opportunity to speak. So I just don't want us to put in, I recognize that we got to balance it off. I just don't want to put anything that makes it difficult for me to speak for the whole community, because I'm the only one that can do that because of what happened in the election. So I just want to make sure that I have that opportunity to speak to the whole town.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think that we have any, by the way, Councillor Dunsmore, I certainly agree with you on that ability to challenge. That was a strong point in this draft. I don't think there's anything then we need to ask staff to do on point 1. Point 2 and 3 kind of go together on this. So the point is, I'll read it. The chair cannot preside over without at the very least creating the appearance of bias, conflict of interest, or other impropriety, any of the following: his or her own moving a motion, his or her own debate of a question, his or own decorum while moving a motion or debating a question, whether his her own motion is a contravention of the rules of procedure, whether his or her own motion is within the jurisdiction of council, and whether his or her own moving a motion or debate of a question amounts is a persisting breach of the rule of procedure. Comments on that, Carrie?
Again, I've kind of lumped all this stuff into kind of the same thing, where I think I indicated, I think there is merit in providing a provision which we could go back and draft, where the mayor, the chair, the presiding officer would turn the chair over in specific circumstances. And I would say those circumstances would be not outlined like this, and it would not be for moving a motion, and it would not be for speaking to a motion. It would be in the event of bringing forward either new business or notice of motion. I think those are two instances, and again, I can go back and think about it, but I think those are two major incidents where I think it's appropriate and has merit, but I do not think that having the chair recuse himself from speaking or moving a motion every time is appropriate. I think functionally it is inappropriate, but there is merit, and we can certainly, if asked, come up with a provision that is reasonable.
I think all the points kind of lead to the same, the first 5 points anyhow kind of lead to the same set of requirements, and that, I guess, the only thing I guess I suggested that we didn't really need the direction to staff after point 1, and in fact we did have a point there that we wanted to make sure was incorporated, and I neglected to mention that, which is that the chair should vacate the chair to make a motion, his own motion, but not to debate a question. So that probably needs to be reworded or worded someplace in the procedure bylaw, Carrie, that the chair should vacate it to move a motion. That's not included in there at the moment.
No, and that would not be staff's recommendation. So I think if it's the direction of this committee to have me do that, then I will. I can certainly draft it, but that is not staff's position for simply moving a motion. I think that's
no, not to move a motion. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, to move his own motion, the chair should vacate the chair position.
To bring forward a notice of motion?
Yeah. Well, yes, or even to make a motion in council.
No, see, I don't agree with that. I think because your motions are either based on staff recommendations, or you, as a leader, he needs to be able to lead you. And in the case where council is not accepted of the staff recommendation, it is the role of the chair to lead you and get you to where you need to be. And sometimes it means moving something. Sometimes it means setting something forward. So I don't agree with that, but if it's the will of this committee to have me draft something, then I will. But I think there are instances, but they are rare, and they are of either bringing notices of motion or new business.
Neil?
I'm all for the fact that if the mayor has an issue and he puts in a notice of motion, or she puts in a notice of motion, and I think that's imperative that we say this. We're trying to draft a procedural bylaw. Let's take Mayor Linton out of it right now. Whether you like Mayor Linton or you don't like Mayor Linton, you have to decide on a procedural bylaw that no matter who is the mayor, how we're going to conduct ourselves. So the bottom line here is if a mayor brings forward a notice of motion where they have an issue they want to deal with, they do it by notice of motion, they rescind the chair to the deputy mayor. But during the course of a meeting, the mayor is elected by the majority of the population of the entire township of Center Wellington, and therefore has the right to lead and should lead. And if something comes out of the discussion where the mayor sees we're going around in circle and he or she decides, let's put a motion in, put it to a vote so we stop the discussion or we get a decision made, he should or she should not have to vacate the chair in order to do that. That's leadership, plain and simple.
Oh, okay. So just to go back to the notice of motion itself, that is not included anywhere in a procedure bylaw as it sits. And so does that needs to be added as a point for under the chair then, Carrie?
That would be something I could take back and I could draft and bring back to the committee, something that you could consider. Maybe we could find some consensus there, that there is merit in putting a provision in that when it's appropriate for the chair to turn the chair over, there I can definitely draft something and bring it back.
Thank you. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you. Going through each one of them like this is point by point is going to take a long time because there's a lot of different opinions. Okay. First one, I guess, is under the duties of the chair. It says, in the absence of or when the mayor declares a conflict of interest or vacates the chair to move a motion or delete or debate a question, should be added to point A of the section 3.01. And
Kirk, can I ask a question? Right, where are you? Are you on number 4 of Mr. Jackson's submission, or where are you at?
I'm on number 7. Well, basically 6, 7 are all follow on to each other, so that basically I'm on number 7, which then goes into the changes proposed.
Okay, so we're actually into the bylaw itself where he's highlighted the changes that he would like to see.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So that was a proposed insertion into the bylaw. And so the only thing that we have decided against is or debate a question. So the rest of that sentence does fit there as far as operationally when the mayor declares a conflict of interest or vacates the chair to move a motion, are valid statements. So, and just from Mr. Jackson's recommendation, we could just take out or debate a question. Is that fair?
Well, I think through you, I think I could probably, if I'm going to draft what we just discussed about when it's appropriate for the chair to turn over, then I think I can incorporate that in there. Because again, conflict of when someone declares a conflict of interest, the act is very clear what that person is to do. It is not appropriate to include that in a procedure bylaw other than what we have done, and we've mirrored the legislation. So I think I can incorporate that into what you've already asked me to do.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. And I think if you go down to C as well, I think I can clear that all up.
Okay, yeah, it all follows from the same conversation.
It's all kind of the same lumped in, yeah.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else, any other direction needed for staff from that submission then. Everybody in agreement? Councillor Dunsmore, anything to add?
No, I'm agreeing, but I do see CAO Goldie's hand up. He might have something to
I'm
add.
sorry. I'm on the wrong page here. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, that's okay, Mr. Chair. Just so we're clear, the statement is to chair to move a motion. I think what we have spoken about is a notice of motion, not just a motion.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
just wanting, words are very key in this, so.
Yes, they are. Thank you. Councillor, or Mayor Linton?
Yes, I'm good with it where it landed.
Okay. Then I think that is the first two completed. Going on to Fred Morris's submission. So, I'm just sorry, I'm just kind of sorting through paper here because some things are easier to read from paper than they are from trying to read on the screen. So first off on Councillor Morris's submission, he suggests inserting the following statements taken from the Municipal Act into this new bylaw as a reminder to our elected officials of the main purpose of their presence at the council table. And so there's a paragraph there with a number of points to it. And so Carrie, can I get your thoughts on that one?
Sure you can. I mean, it's staff's position that the role of council, I think, doesn't belong in a procedure bylaw. Again, if it's verbatim from the Municipal Act or not, it doesn't really belong here. It just, I think council knows what its role is. And this is not a bylaw that's distributed to the public, for the public. This is simply governing how you handle your meetings. So to include the role here just simply adds more paper. It makes it more lengthy, and it doesn't really have a place here. I think it's included in your code of conduct. It's included in the staff and relations policy. Those are documents that are posted on the website that are have a public process attached to them. Including them here in staff's opinion is kind of redundant and makes the document less user-friendly. There's no harm in it as long as it's verbatim from the Municipal Act. but it also is not necessary.
Looking at, for my comment, under the principles of the procedure bylaw, identifying the role of council to me is strengthens those principles by reminding us exactly what council meetings and committee of the whole meetings are intended to do, which is everything that's under the role of council. And so I think inserting it in there would strengthen and the overall document. That's my opinion on it. Councillor Dunsmore, do you have any comments?
I think it's imperative on every council member to know their role, to read the act and to have it in the act. Carrie, your words rang in my ears when I talked to about 6 different councillors across the province. People that I know that are in councils in different municipalities, some quite larger than ours. One was a little bit smaller. The procedural bylaw is a document that is rarely used. Everybody's supposed to understand how they're supposed to run a meeting and conduct themselves in a meeting. And so most of them, familiarize themselves with their code of conduct and their duties and responsibilities under the Municipal Act. But if it makes people happy and if it's a cut and paste, Carrie, where we take what's in the Municipal Act and put it in this, I certainly wouldn't object to it. I just don't think it's necessary. I think we all need to know what our role is and live with it.
Mayor Linton?
It doesn't, best practice for documents is not to mirror other documents, especially when it's not the purpose of a procedures bylaw. So it's immaterial. It doesn't make sense to have it here. But it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I mean, if it's verbatim, it means that anytime the province makes a change to the Municipal Act, which does happen from time to time, we got to go back and revise our procedures bylaw. So it's not good practice to do it this way. But I don't really care all that much, except what it does is it muddies the waters as to what the procedures bylaw is all about. And this isn't what it's all about. And it's not going to be procedures bylaws is not used to educate the public on the role of council. We can do that over social media. We can do that in a whole lot of different ways and just pull the information directly out of the Municipal Act. So that's not the purpose of a procedures bylaw. So, but I don't want to waste too much time on it. If people think that, if they want to put the role of the council in here and we think the majority of councillors want to see this, then I don't want to waste too much of our time in whether to keep it or not.
I do think it helps clarify the reason for the procedures bylaw, why we're there. I think it's a good addition, personally. So if nobody objects to it, then I would suggest we go forward with it, Carrie, if we could add it in there. And then we move on to section 6.10. Under staff reports, it has that's 6.09 actually, I think. Anyhow, there are 5 recommendations there to that instructions for what should be included in the staff report. And once again, I think that it helps clarify and would be a worthwhile addition to the document. So once again, Councillor Dunford, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't like it, period. I think this is somebody trying to control how staff write the reports, and what I really kind of take offense to is the more information. I mean, that implies that we don't get enough information as it is, and it's, you go back to the role of counsel that everybody wanted to talk about in the Municipal Act. It's not our job to take every little piece of information they give us and then try to second guess or counteract their particular reports. I'm quite happy with the amount of reports we get from our staff, and I'm quite happy with the in-depth analysis of them. And I look at this one and I just think there's an axe to be ground here, and I don't like it.
Mayor Linton.
Yeah, I hate it. I think it's completely outside the realm of procedures bylaw. No, I don't think it has any. I don't think it has any merit to be here at all.
If I could comment on that, I do disagree with Councillor Dunsmore in that this basically is the major point of contention in many of our discussions at council, which is we're not getting all of the information that some members of council request, particularly the alternatives and the background on the motions brought forward. And so I think having this instruction in there, it can be reworded. I don't have a problem with the rewording, but I think that it's important that staff reports do have their components identified in the procedure bylaw as same as, well, it's part of the procedure for staff as well as for council. So that's my comments. Neil?
Yeah, staff prepare reports, Mr. Chair, and I have never ever seen a time when we have asked for more information when we've never gotten it. There's a misperception out there that they withhold information from us, or that people, staff, or council can't get information out of it. And I would challenge you to give me a time where you have asked for information, or we as a council have asked for information where we haven't got it. Every time we do it, we get it. The biggest problem there is there's some councillors who don't understand their role, and they ask for the information themselves independently. But anytime we put a motion forward and council is asked, we've got more information. So if you're ever in the situation where you feel you're not getting enough information to make the decision, all you have to do is put a motion and get it moved by council, and you get every piece of information you're after. But when I've seen it time and time again, when people start yelling at staff that I want this, I want that, they're not obligated to give it to us unless we ask them as a council as a whole. And that goes right back to our role that most people are not understanding.
Councillor Linton, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just say that, I think this would be thrown out pretty quick if we ever got any advice from a subject matter expert when it comes to procedures bylaw. This is providing operational detail. That was never the intent behind a procedures bylaw, and I've never seen anything like this in any procedures bylaw. So it just, to me, it just doesn't fit. Whether it's good practice or not, that's besides the point. It just doesn't fit in the procedures bylaw.
I guess my comment is, I mean, I still think it's a valuable to identify the staff report components. Councillor Dunsmore, I don't disagree with what you're saying. If we ask for more information, if enough councillors ask for more information, it will come in the next meeting, but that causes a delay. What I'm suggesting is that if it has common components for each staff report the first time they come through, instead of always having a 4-3 vote, perhaps we could have a 7-0 vote. I think that what this does is lays out the information requirements that kind of answer the questions asked by some councillors on a regular basis, and that's it moves things along more quickly with more of a more opportunity for all of council to get the information that they need in order to make the decisions. Councillor Dunsmore?
Well, I would respectfully argue the opposite, because the reports would be a lot slower coming if they have to try to guess at what kind of more information we want. If they had to include every piece of information that they got before they brought the report together, then we may as well fire them all and do the job ourselves. And we're not capable of doing that. It's way too much information that they have to process, and you're not defining the term more. It's more than we're getting now or everything. And that to me is, it comes down to, if I get a report from staff and I don't think there's enough information there, then we put a motion in and get more brought to us. And specifically what we want more of, like we did on the digester roof. There was a feeling among councillors that they didn't have enough information regarding whether it was a fixed or a floating roof, and we asked for that, and we got it, and we did get a more majority vote than we did the first time, and I can appreciate that. But those cases to me are very rare, and I don't want to burden staff. And Carrie, my question is to you. I'm trying to figure out, is this what goes into a staff report, and the depth and breadth of the staff report, is that a discussion for procedural bylaws or somewhere else that we should be putting those terms of reference?
Through the chair, absolutely not. It doesn't belong here. This is totally administrative. And if council as a whole wishes us to change our policy on how we deliver agendas and how we deliver reports and so forth, that is totally administrative, and council simply needs to pass a motion in that regard, or pass a policy. We could definitely develop a policy, but it does not belong here. This level of detail does not belong in a procedural bylaw. This is totally administrative and inappropriate to be here. Sorry to be so frank, but.
Frankness is what we need. So what you just said, Carrie, is that if we want this type of thing to be incorporated into the administrative process, council needs to have that request come forward to council, or to council, to staff. So is this something then that we can put in the parking lot to do outside of the procedure bylaw?
Through you, that I would suggest we park it for now, but I think these are things that council needs to discuss with its administration. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head how we do that, but it does not belong in this conversation. We can park it and figure out what to do with it later. But it needs to be an issue with more than this committee. It has nothing to do with the procedure bylaw. So we can park it for another day, but it's something that needs to be raised outside of this process.
Okay, thank you. I just have one more comment to go back to your comments, Councillor Dunsmore. specifically about the digester roof, that would not have gone back to council or back to staff for more details if we had had a full council that night. It was because we only had because there's one councillor missing, then it went through, but it wasn't it. And that's, I think, part of the problem. Go ahead. Yes, please.
With all due respect, Kirk, it would have. What you have to do is stop yelling and screaming at staff and demanding information and telling them they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and simply put a motion forward and say, we as a council need more information. I sit and listen to it all the time where we're yelling and screaming and arguing that we need more information, but nobody puts it in a motion. If you put it in a motion, you'll get a seconder and we'll vote on it. And that night, had you done that, or had Bob done that, we would have done that. We would have asked for more information and gone through with it. But there was no motion put on the floor. It was always just accusation.
I think, in fact, Bob did do that, and it was ruled out of order. So that's...
Well, I remember the next meeting where I put the motion in and we got the information and we're done. So it's a matter of, again, we go back to that piece that is in the Municipal Act. Understand your role.
And as I say, we tried the process to do it the way we thought it should be done, and both Bob and Councillor Kittredge made the motions to do it, and they were both ruled out of order.
Well, the good news there is that under this new procedural bylaw,
Change that.
he could have come up and said, I appeal to my members of council, and the decision could have been overruled. So at least I say we've just established the fact that we may have made progress here.
No, I know. I agree with that. I told you that before.
Yep.
That addition to the procedure bylaw is the most positive thing about it. Okay. Next point in Mr. Morris's submission is section 307, 308, and 309, and revolve around the rules of debate. When reading section 307, members should avoid comments intended to be statements or assertion. And the question is, what does this mean? He suggests it should be eliminated from the document. So back to you, Carrie. What does this mean?
Again, this is not a hill I will die on either. The intent of a procedure bylaw is to make meetings more efficient, and everybody deserves that. So it's simply a statement that prohibits councillors from getting on their soapboxes, so to speak, or delivering soliloquies, or hijacking meetings based on, rhetoric and verbiage and that sort of thing. It's, again, it's not a hill I want to die on, but there is a purpose to it in that it ensures efficiency. Everybody should come prepared to the meeting with their questions, and we don't need a whole lot of background. We just need you to ask the question. It's limiting debate, it's limiting questions, it's coming prepared. That's the best I can do with that one.
Councillor Dunsmore.
Yeah, my interpretation of this, and again, when I asked other people if it's in their procedural bylaws, and a couple of them said, no, we don't have anything like this. And some of them said, yeah, we do. And it is that they can't make an assertion or a statement that they claim is fact, or say something that that's outside the realm of the debate that says that's not true because of, or you're doing this because, and it's just to keep the debate civil. And that's basically all it is. It's an assertion. It's a spot to stop you from getting on your campaign soapbox in the middle of a meeting, and just carry it on and carry on with the discussion itself, and not make assertions or claims in a meeting.
I'm sorry. Yes, through you. And to be perfectly honest, it happens quite often. And Whether this would curtail it or not, I don't know. You'd have to call the members out on it, but it does have a purpose for sure.
I believe that members who get on their soapbox, as Councillor Dunsmore just called it, or are speaking out of order, are already covered by point of order. I don't know how many different procedure bylaws I went through, but I didn't find this in any of them. So I think it's an unnecessary statement. That's my own feeling about it.
Just if I could clarify once, in order to call a point of order, you must have something to reference. So if this statement is not in there, then you could not, on a point of order, call somebody out on something that is not contained in here. So for instance, on a point of order, Councillor Dunsmore is breaching the procedure bylaw under section 3.32 by asserting or whatever it is. It must be in there in order for you to call them on it. Just saying. You can't call them on something that isn't in the bylaw.
Well, it needs to be better defined then, I believe, because it is very unclear on exactly what it means. And I think that's the problem. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, what is a statement? What is an assertion? And how do you define that? And so somebody can get called on it for no valid reason. So I don't like, it just isn't well defined. Mayor Linton.
I'd be okay with getting rid of it. There's no way that we're going to be able to avoid it anyway. So I'm okay with the first part of that. Part of D, comments are to be relevant to the matter of business before council or committee, period, and just get rid of the rest. I don't think it's that big of a deal, and it's not gonna help. So I don't think it helps here to have it in here personally.
Okay. Councillor Dunbar, is that you okay with that?
Yeah, it's like Carrie said, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on either.
Okay. I guess that is our direction to staff. So the next page is proposals for following rules of debate to be included in the procedure bylaw. Once again, Carrie, I'll go to you. And
okay, so
a lot of it is duplicate of what's already there, and some of it isn't.
I agree. Some of it is definitely in there. Let me just refer to my notes here. Number 4, I don't understand. Number 1, I think is unnecessary. I think everybody knows, again, what we're going to define what your role is. I don't think that's necessary. I actually think that sets a very poor tone, to be honest with you. Number 2 is in there. Number 3 is already there. Again, I don't understand what 4 means. Number 5 is already there. Council being restricted to 5 minutes. Again, that's up to council. I would never impose that on council. Number 7, I think it's already there. And number 8, to be perfectly honest with you, I think Councillor McRae came up with a much better solution. If you want to park that and wait for his comments, he has a much better suggestion that on that item. So if we could maybe work on number 4, I think everything else is in there. Number 1, I don't agree with, but number 4, I don't really understand what that means. Oh, no, wait a second. Or there's the one where they pass. I'm sorry, it's number 3 that I don't understand. I don't know what pass between means.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what shall pass between means. I think the rest of it is kind of already there. So I'm not sure that what is already in the document needs to be changed for that one, because I agree with you. I don't know what that shall pass between, but Councillor Dunsmore, any comments?
No, I'm trying to figure out what he's referring to, other than the fact that he just doesn't want another member to be interrupted when they're speaking with a conversation between another councillor and the mayor. And I would think that that would be standard etiquette, that we wouldn't be doing that. And the mayor, if it was, between 2 other councillors, I think the chair is obligated to quiet the council and carry on with the debate properly. So,
Yeah,
I think maybe it's an attempt to legislate order, which is something I think is in our code of conduct.
I think it's a situation that has come up in council where one councillor might interrupt somebody else speaking, and it has been called by the mayor more than once. And the only reason that can happen is to raise a point of order or a point of privilege. So it's a valid statement. I wasn't sure. I think the wording just needs to be changed a bit there. And, but I think that's kind of already included, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. It's just the pass between part. I didn't know whether he, of course, we're so accustomed to doing Zoom meetings right now, we kind of forget what it's like to be in person, but I don't think anybody interrupts, leaves their chair and interrupts. Maybe it's something to do with not leaving your chair without permission. I don't know.
And we have no time limits now on members of council speaking at all, do we?
No. Hey, by all means, if you guys want to limit yourself, staff are all for it. But I just don't know how you're going to enforce anything like that.
Yeah, except, I might throw something at the speaker and try to get him to shut up if it gets too long. No, I agree. I think there are situations where somebody may want to speak more than 5 minutes, and you don't want to be interrupted to get permission from council to do it. So
again, I think this is part of the duty of the chair. The chair feels the room. The chair needs to know the room and the people that are speaking. So those liberties really fall with the chair. If somebody is repeating themselves over and over and over again, then he should have the power, she should have the power to end the discussion, but they also should be able to take liberties to let that go and let the thought come and let the delegation or council have more than 5 minutes. I think our current bylaw, our 2005 bylaw, has a limit, and I don't think we've ever adhered to it.
okay. So there's really nothing. We're going to park the 0.8 until we cover Councillor McRae's
I'm going to suggest that because Councillor McRae has a similar but better version.
Okay.
Does Kelly have any thoughts on this particular issue?
Well, through you, Chair. You know, we until, like, I know as chair of the meetings, I have the ability to, you know, ask people to, you know, if do you have anything new to add, because we get repetitious a lot. We go out of the scope of the agenda a lot, and I've been really lax about it. But to me, it comes back to if councillors wanna, if councillors like we've gone around things enough, you can call the question. You know, it's not all on me because I keep getting slammed because I'm shutting off debate, even though we have 5-hour council meetings. So I've never not allowed debate to continue, even if it's the same councillor having 7 or 8 questions in a row. Because I haven't gotten support from council to say, you know, let's be a little bit more efficient in our meetings. And the way that councillors can do that is call the question. We go around and around so many times, and I'm not going to cut it out because I feel like councillors are all elected for a reason, and they have the ability to speak mind on things. But that doesn't mean that we can't. The tools are there in our procedures bylaw for councillors to call the question. If we've been around and around the same subject over and over again, people are just saying the same thing. You know, I try to express my feeling on that, but I'm not going to go out and take a hard line on this if councillors don't feel similarly. So. Yeah, there's nothing about the proposed bylaw that I want to, you know, I'm looking at some of the text here. There's nothing about the proposed bylaw that I'm trying to control or limit an investigative process. I've never done that in the past, and as long as I'm the chair of these meetings, I won't do it in the future. But so all that to say, I have nothing else to add to these comments.
Okay. If I look through this, I think that's really the only comments we had left in this document from Councillor or from Mr. Morris. And the only action going forward is to park point 8 until we are also reviewing Councillor McRae's comments. Other than that, I think we're finished discussing this last one, the rules of debate. Is that correct? Okay. Let us move forward after I can get Mr. iPad restarted here. Okay. Submission by Daniel Bratton and Carol Williams. Okay, this, their first comment has been repeated in a number of other submissions as well, which is they felt there should have been a public meeting for this whole procedure bylaw process. And that general feeling is that it should not have been developed 100% by staff without council involvement and without public input. And in fact, if that had happened that way, we wouldn't be doing an ad hoc committee right now. But So I guess the question is, we do have delegations coming forward on December 14th to provide some input. Is there any appetite for actually having a public meeting sometime before we bring it forward next year? Councillor Dunsmore.
Let's park that concept till we get through everybody's comments. I want to hear them all before we contemplate a public meeting.
And Mayor?
I concur with that. You know, we're starting to cross. There's a lot of conceptual opposition that we're dealing with, but we're doing pretty good going through it. And you know, if we want to have the public involved, which is very rare for a procedures bylaw, but that being as it may, we may be able to get some more targeted input as we go through here. And if there's areas that we think we'd like to hear what the public has to say about them, why don't we just pull them out and make sure that those are the things that we're asking public input for? Because if it's going to be similar to some of the stuff that we have here, basically it's just overview of how this is the death of democracy in Center Wellington. So we need to get a little bit more value than that out of the comments. So if we do want to do some public input, maybe going through this process for a bit is the best way to do it, and then we go out with a little bit more focused ask of people, and then we might get people engaged in the process as well because they understand what they're being asked. So just my thoughts.
So direction is we're going to park this until we've heard from everybody then, kind of, and talk about a public
Yeah,
meeting.
at least until we go through the list we have, right? Let's go through all these comments and see how many people asked for it.
Okay. So once again, it suggests that we put in the description of the role of council, and we've already done that.
I'm just wondering, Kirk, everybody's indicated they wanted to include the role of counsel. Is there any merit including the role of administration and the role of the clerk as well? Or is it simply just counsel's role that's important here?
No,
Just for clarification, I'm just asking, there are other roles of administration and the clerk defined in the Municipal Act. Just a question before we go on.
Yeah, I guess off the top of my head, I don't think that's a bad thing to include the role of clerk, because obviously legislative services has a lot to do with how the procedures of each meeting are handled, and if there are questions, you're the one that's going to answer them. So yeah, I have no problem with that personally. I don't know about you, Neil.
Well, I can, given the amount of people that are asking for the clarification of roles or dumping on staff for controlling things, it probably wouldn't, in the course of the procedure of a meeting, to put something in there about the roles of everybody who's involved in the meeting and what they're there for and what the roles are. I mean, that's going to expand it. I mean, is there another piece of legislation that covers that, Carrie, that we can just refer to, so we're not writing an entirely new document?
Oh no, I would do it verbatim from the Municipal Act, but there is Section 225 outlines the role of the head of council. 227 outlines the head of the administration, and then of course there's Section 224 is the clerk, 228 is the clerk. So I'm just wondering if we're trying to use this document as an educational tool that
Right,
perhaps,
that's what we're doing. We're trying to re-educate the public on the roles of everybody who's in the meeting, and I'm not sure that this is the place for that, because the procedural bylaw is supposed to be designed to get us to work.
oh, I think we might have lost our chair.
Oh, did we?
No, you didn't.
Oh,
you did?
Break.
Oh, sorry, no, okay. No, again, it's just clarification. If the intent of it is to, then,
You know,
just asking.
yeah, and I'm looking at that as I didn't even want the council role in, because it's all in the Municipal Act and it all comes down hill. So if you want to find out what the role of the CAO and the role of the clerk and the role of the deputy clerk and the role of the senior administrative staff are, go back to the Municipal Act, because we can't usurp it. So you're just doing a cut and paste anyway. This is going to be a document so lengthy, nobody's going to read it. Never mind follow it.
Kind of my point.
Okay. Yes, Mayor.
Just a question for Carrie. If we do expand it to include it, because if we want to include a little bit more, can we include, like, can we put the role of council, the role of the clerk, the role of whatever, can we put that in appendices? Like, if the province then changes the Municipal Act, do we still have to go to council to change a schedule? Can we throw this stuff in a schedule that's still attached and sent out whenever we send out the procedures bylaw, but it would avoid us having to redo our bylaw every time the Municipal Act changes?
Well, see, and you're right. That's why you don't include those things, because as soon as a legislation changes, then it's out of date. And I mean, you could certainly include the link to the legislation, e-laws. We could set up a schedule and send a link, and then it would always be up to date. And then it wouldn't form part of your bylaw. It would simply be a Schedule 2. Yeah. It's again, it's not usually done, but I mean, it's not out of it. I would sooner see it done that way than include everything in the bylaw where it doesn't really belong. If it's considered to be an educational document, then it maybe would be more appropriate to attach it as a schedule than including it and bogging down the actual purpose of a procedure bylaw to run your meeting and not, to me, it would, that would be more appropriate to just attach it than it would be to include it in the bylaw where it doesn't really belong.
Okay.
Andy has his hand up, Kirk.
I'm sorry, on the wrong page again. I'm using my tablet instead of my big computer here because I was using my big computer for Word documents and such, so sorry about that. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A way maybe to be around this is just to put a note at the top of the bylaw or somewhere early in that this document should be read in conjunction with the most recent Municipal Act, the Code of Conduct, and other documentation, that it needs to be read in conjunction with all those, not just as a separate. And so we're not having to repeat all that. It could be easily explained in a couple of sentences that this is a part of legislation that comes from other documentation. And that way, as people are reading it, they know they need to go back and read some other components of it. So we're not making this, I think if we put this in a procedural bylaw and we've seen someone where 60, 70, 80 pages, no one's really looking at them whatsoever. I think we need to keep this concise. And if people are really looking for an education piece, they can go back and read some of the other required legislation and codes and other policies. Just my suggestion.
Would it, instead of, I think that's a great idea, Andy. I'm just wondering if there should be references in the procedure bylaw to specific points of the Municipal Act to know where to look to get clarification. Just a question, Carrie, you probably, looking stuff up in the conflict of, or in the Municipal Act is challenging and time consuming if nothing else. What are your thoughts, Carrie?
It is, but again, like section 238 tells us a municipality must have a procedure bylaw to govern the order of business at a meeting. It's not the job of the procedural bylaw to do anything, but simply that.
Okay.
So we're getting way out of scope here, and I think that was, I'm trying to bring it back and just get your procedure bylaw to run your meeting. Never mind using it as a tool to do anything else. Simply pass it. You have other sections of the Municipal Act tell you to do your code of conduct and to do your employee and to do other things. Those are all separate documents. Trying to combine everything into one document is, again, it doesn't make it user friendly, and it doesn't make it appropriate either. Like it bogs it down, and we probably will never look at this document again. Once we have it, we should never ever have to look at it or use it as anything. But in the event we need clarification on something. Yeah, I think we need to bring it back into perspective that it's simply a bylaw to govern how you run your meetings. Simple as that.
Okay. That's fair. Anything else from you, Mayor Kelly, Mayor Linton?
No, I have nothing else. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think everything else in the document from Daniel and Carol was already covered in from Mr. Morris. So I don't think there's anything new there that we haven't already talked about. So nothing going forward there. The next one is from Dean Workman. And once again, the public notice requirement was highlighted, notifying the public and opportunity to provide input, et cetera, et cetera. And we've already parked that to discuss at the end of this, I think. He asked for the source material for the structure and creation of the bylaw and the justification for using it. Now, Carrie, in your original introductory presentation, you mentioned that you included or reviewed a lot of other procedure bylaws. Is this something that would be easy to provide to the public, the sources of where the information came from or where you got it from, or is it something that is not straightforward right now?
Well, I did not, through you, to be perfectly honest with you, I think in my report, I outlined only half of the sources that I used, just to keep it simple. I also have almost 30 years experience in this business, so I used my own experience as well as a lot of other documents. For me to provide all that information and indicate, I think somebody else even asked for where I got what, how, and when. I mean, we've been working at this as a team it's not just me. This was Legislative Services as a team that put this together. So for me to provide that information would be quite onerous, and more so than what I've indicated. We read a lot, we reviewed a lot, and we chose what we thought was best for this council, for councils moving forward, and what we thought was the best document. We took the best from the best, I thought, because not every procedural bylaw is the same. Not everybody's council acts the same. For us, it was important to put a document in place that would suit this council, and councils moving forward, and work efficiently and appropriately. That's what we did. We begged, borrowed, and stole from all over, and took the best from the best.
I guess I was just wondering, Councillor McRae, for instance, included footnotes in all of his references where he got the information, and I was hoping that you had something similar that we could follow up on, because I really appreciated it in Councillor McRae's document, that I was able to go and look at the bylaws from various locations that he had checked out. So
yeah, you also have to take things with a grain of salt as well, because you can clearly see some bylaws are written certain ways in order to deal with dysfunction at the time, and to include some of that stuff in a council that does not need to control dysfunction, or to control things that aren't working. There's an awful lot of variances between the municipalities in the north and the large cities. It's very important to pick and choose what works in this community and in this area.
okay. So providing source material then, other than the list that you've already provided, is not realistic. That's what you're suggesting.
I mean, it would take me a considerable amount of time to pull that together, and I think I mean, if this council wants me, or this committee wants me to do that, I can certainly take that time to do that, but it would be quite a list, to be honest with you.
Okay, moving on to point 3.
Mr. Chair, just a minute, please. You've got two people with their hands up on this issue.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll continue to do that, Kirk, because you don't have them all up on your screen.
Yeah, okay.
You've got both the mayor and the CAO that wish to speak to this.
I see them now. Okay, Mayor Linton, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to speak to this because this is really important, because this is the same, basically this is verbatim to what we've heard from a couple councillors in their comments. So it is a theme that's out there right now, that for some reason that staff have the responsibility to explain how they got to every single detail of every single report. And that is absolutely not staff's role. We put in place highly qualified individuals to do their job, to filter through all kinds of documentations, to have discussions with all kinds of people, to put something out there that in their opinion is a recommendation from them. And then it's our job as council to talk about that recommendation. But we cannot be putting any kind of onus on our staff. Who did you talk to on this date? Footnote every single piece of every single decision that you made, or every single assumption that you made. Forget the decision, even an assumption that you made to get there. We can't. That is not the role of council. And maybe that is the benefit of having something that says the role of council, to ensure that all of councillors remember what their role is, because it sure isn't to oversee the details of operations and to oversee the details on how staff got to certain recommendations. Their reports should include a summary of their approach that they took. It should include kind of some real high level assumptions that they made to get to those recommendations, but it really, really can't get into the details behind everything that they looked at, because in order to provide us with that information, they'd have to stop doing a lot of the jobs that they do because everything would take way too long. And that's one of the reasons that I had a problem with one of the items in another submission that we saw when I talked about staff providing all their options and all the assumption and details into all those options. So basically what that's saying is dump it on council and make council make all the decisions because you're going to provide all the kind of options. And we don't want to go down that path. We have to appreciate that staff are bringing a recommendation to us and then talk to that recommendation and see if there's ways that we can change it, but not get into every kind of piece of information that goes along the way. Because if you ask your senior team if they had to do that for every report that they have to do, especially the ones that are very technical in nature, if they had to provide that to council, we'd be ground to a halt here. And we completely lose focus on our governance role. So I just wanted to say those things because this is something that comes up from time to time, and it really is driven from a lack of understanding of the governance role and the policy setting role of council.
Okay. Andy, you had your hand up as well, I understand.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. I'll just interrupt next time as I know your screen is a little smaller. I just a few additional points too, as what Mayor Linden said. Staff is hired to be the experts. This is what Carrie and her staff and in engineering, their staff do. They have their education, they have their years experience. We also have our networks. We talk to other clerks, we talk to other engineers, we talk to other CAOs to see what's working, not working in their situations. And that's what her staff have looked at when they looked at this procedural bylaw. Typically, there's one thing that kind of is the start of from one of the municipalities or 3 or 4 others that we hear have a really good document or they've gone through a process. If we're to have to provide all the details on every conversation, every piece of document we looked at, the packages that we send out to council will be huge. It'll be 400 or 500 pages just talking about what we've reviewed and the clerks have looked at from the procedural bylaw. So I think it is very much looking at needing to understand the governance role. Staff are here to go look at do the work, provide recommendations based on their expertise and what they have found out there. We try to provide a high-level summary, and then it's up for the council. Councillor McRae has looked at a couple other bylaws, a couple other councillors noted other bylaws. Immediately our staff have gone back and looked at those bylaws to take a look at what those are because that's what they do as their job. So I think what we present is something that council needs to understand that this is our expertise. These are the recommendations we're meeting and council can make a decision from there.
Okay. Councillor Dunsmore, do you have anything?
No, I got nothing to add to that.
Okay. Point 3 of this document asks once again to provide a public input opportunity. So that one's in the back burner. And the rest of Dean's submission basically talks about why we are trying to rush it through. I kind of echo that opinion. Basically, I just, as far as I'm concerned, getting it right is more important than getting it through at a specific date. So it has been moved out to February, which is good, but if it takes longer than that, it takes longer than that, as long as we get it right, in my opinion. But other than that, there's no call to action there, I don't think. So that's about it for that document, in my opinion. Is anybody any other comments?
No, none for me.
Okay.
No, I'm fine moving on to the next letter.
Okay, that's Risa and Shelley. And I don't think they've added anything new there. It's basically reiterating submissions from others. Unless I missed something. Does anybody have any comments on that submission? Carrie, you didn't see anything there new?
No, I didn't actually see any suggestions. No, not there.
No, okay. That's what I read too. And then from Stacy Barron. Her only comment in here is the 5-minute rule for delegations, and that came up a lot of times. I agree with them. I think 5 minutes, limiting a delegation to 5 minutes is too short. It's now 10 minutes, and I don't know, I don't think we need to change that, but certainly open to discussion. Carrie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to changing it. We shortened it to 5 because generally speaking, delegations are 5 minutes. We always set the timer, and unless it's a controversial thing and we have them lined up, 5 minutes is generally adequate. Again, the chair has the liberty, or in the case of the bylaw, the council can extend the time frame. It doesn't limit anybody. It simply just kind of suggests that if you can say it in 5 minutes, please say it in 5 minutes, because there's 12 people behind you. And in the order of efficiency, everybody deserves an opportunity, and 5 minutes is generally what people take.
Councillor Dunsmore?
Come on. Yeah, I'm okay with going back to 10 minutes, but I would like to add something in there, that a delegation is a delegation. So that delegation can use their 10 minutes, but they can't pass it to another delegation. So we don't have where a group comes in and registers 5 different people and they're all a delegation, and then the night of they say, well, I'll give my time to this guy and I'll give my time to this guy. And then we have the opportunity for somebody to get up and pontificate for 55 minutes. So if you're a delegation, you're a delegation. Have your thoughts written down and have your say. My only concern is, do we set a number? Because we often have time constraints on meetings, and if you get 15 delegations, then it may be more prudent to take it down to 5. And so how do we deal with that? And I'll take your advice on that, Carrie.
Yeah, again, council has the opportunity to waive procedure. So in the event that you have 30 people all wanting to speak at 10 minutes, the chair could suggest at the beginning of the meeting that in the interests of efficiency and time, we waive the rules of order, waive the procedure of 10 minutes, and ask everyone to limit their comments to 5 minutes. You can ask also, when we talk to delegations, we also suggest that they appoint a spokesperson, that if there are people with common issues and common concerns, to appoint a spokesperson. In the numbers and 30 people showing up to say the same thing does not have the impact that one person saying it concisely on behalf of the people has the same impact. So we always coach our delegations that way, and that appoint a spokesperson if you all have similar concerns. If you have something new to add, by all means, register and speak to that. But it is in the everyone's best interests in efficiency and order, and so that we're not there till midnight, all listening to repetitive stuff. Yeah. It's not to curtail, it's just to streamline in their benefit and for the benefit of council.
One of the submissions I noted suggested having for delegations of 3 or more that they have a limitation of 20 minutes, and for the total group, and that would kind of help keep the large groups down to a manageable time. And I agree that most people are through in 5 minutes, but what I would rather see it left at 10 minutes so that people don't get interrupted after 5 minutes and have to go through the whole process of getting permission to extend, kind of thing. But most people get, as you say, get through in 5 minutes anyhow, or 2 minutes as far as that goes in many cases. So that I would rather see it left at 10 minutes the way it is today, personally.
I mean, there's nothing to prevent again, the person running the meeting has the leeway to let someone know, okay, you've exceeded your time limit. Could you please wrap this up? Could you please draw this to conclusion? On the other hand, most people again will wrap things up in 5 minutes. So again, I don't care one way or the other. I do not agree with allowing 3 people to stay and then take 20 minutes. I think they should register separately. They should say their piece separately, or appoint a spokesperson on their behalf. I think it's far more efficient to do it that way.
Mayor Linton, comments?
Yeah, I think personally, I think that 5 minutes is a lots of time if you're to get a real strong point across. If I mean the most impactful delegations that we've witnessed have been the ones that have stayed to 5 minutes, but it has come up several times already that 5 minutes seems like it's too short. So I'm fine with leaving it at 10. I don't want this to be a deal breaker just because, and I don't want to suggest that we're trying to get people in and out as fast as possible. Efficiency has never been something that this council felt was very important. We go on for quite some time, so why should we make delegations speed things up? We're not speeding things up, so I'm okay with going to 10, keeping it at 10.
Okay. Well, I think we're all in. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't turn off my phone. We're all in agreement then for putting it back to 10 minutes, I think. Carrie? And I think that's all we have. And Stacy mentioned that she was going to submit another document, but I didn't get a copy of anything else, so I assume this is it. Okay. So we can move on to Councillor Kittredge. And once again, on the iPad, it comes through as Chinese and English. So,
have you forgotten about Donna's and Tom's?
well, no, I was just going through the sequence. Councillor Kittredge is 6.8 and Donna is 6.9. On my list.
Okay, no, yeah.
So, yeah.
Just
go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion that we, since Councillor Kittredge is a councillor, why don't we do Donna McCaw, Tom Nuds first, and then we can do Councillor Kittredge as the first of the 3 councillors. Then we've heard all the citizen stuff before we get into the council stuff.
Okay, that's fair. I have no problem
Does that make sense? Anybody got a problem with that? Well, I'll let you do that.
Yeah. Is that okay with you, Kelly?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Chair, Kirk, we have several other ones as well, including William Gerard, Jan Beveridge,
Yeah.
So there are a few, so if we go through all those together, that.
Go through all of the community, all of the citizens first, and then
Yep.
we'll do the councillors.
Yep.
Yep, sure. Makes sense. Okay, we shall head for Donna then.
Just 5 minutes.
Okay.
What's that?
Andy, you're not muted, right?
Sorry, Kelly?
I was just reminding Andy that he was not muted, so I could hear those guys.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, I'm just reading through Donna's here. It's less point oriented and more general, so I'm trying to come up with actual points. So the first discussion or first paragraph is a recommendation is that delegations of citizens need to be included, welcomed, and heard in a timely and respectful manner. With enough time allowed, which I think goes back to the 10 minutes. And so I think we've already covered that point. Need to have an appropriate matter to any other 5 minutes. Citizens need to be confident, heard in a fair and timely manner. Okay, the next comment then is assignment to committees or advisory groups, and it needs to be transparent and fairly distributed. So that has once and again, that's another topic that's come up 2 or 3 times I've noticed. So if I go to the document for that. No, we have a lot of comments on the appointment to of council representatives to township advisory groups and boards. And it says shall be recommended by mayor and approved by council. But there's comments are numerous, including sortition and section. Anyhow, I guess the point is here that I'm going to give you my own opinion on this one because I understand it best. I don't think appointment of council representation to advisory groups and boards, I think it's something that should be done as part of our orientation with discussion and not just appointed. But on top of that, I think each mayor will have their own opinion on how they want to do this. Having been through 2 mayors now, I know that it was done completely differently between the 2. So is it our responsibility as part of a procedure bylaw to dictate what the next mayor is going to do? Or should we be leaving that information, leaving that as something that is to be determined by the mayor, the next mayor, how they want to do it? I don't think that isn't something that is legislated. And so that's my own feeling about it, is that it's should depend on the mayor. I agree with Donna's comment that it should be transparent and fairly distributed, but it also, the process should be up to the mayor, I believe. Councillor Dunsmore?
I concur that this is a mayor's responsibility. It's one of their duties. Every mayor needs to be afforded the flexibility to appoint to advisory committees. And I'd ask Carrie, what legislation governs the process? Is it just the Municipal Act and our bylaw? Or, you know, is there anything else that covers off advisory committees?
Through you, what staff did in this bylaw was simply mirror the existing situation here that seems to work. We did not add anything or take anything away. We just actually clarified it so that it was in writing somewhere. So this, what is in the bylaw under section 5.01 is in fact what currently happens.
What currently happens. And does that authority come from the Municipal Act, or where does it come from?
Oh, yeah, it's just historical. It's just
historic. It's just an administrative policy that's been in place for decades, and now it carries on. So,
because you'll notice in the bylaw that there's no red and there's no yellow there. It is all white.
Correct.
So it is exactly what the system we use today that seems to work for us. And now, again, some things are with advisory committees, some things are included in the terms of reference.
right.
We've kept it very bare bones minimum in the procedure bylaw so that the terms of reference can be more expansive.
Okay, so as far as this goes, then we're open to make changes if we see fit. I'm happy with the way it goes, just the same as you were, Kirk. And I'll just let you know now, because you can't see him on the screen, as the CAO has his hand up.
I see him. And Andy, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this, as Carrie stated, this process has been in as long. I've been now CAO for 8 years, and that was in place even prior to me becoming CAO.
There's two different points, because Carrie was referencing section 5.01 under advisory committees, and I was looking at section 3.02 appointments to committees and boards. So, but they both obviously interact with each other. I guess having done it in a couple of different ways now, I mean, the way that we did it previously was, it was a discussion during our orientation, and counselors got an opportunity to suggest what they would like to be how they would like to participate, and that's how I got to be on the Economic Development Committee for 8 years, and thought it was a great way to do things. So, I mean, it is recommended by the mayor and approved by council, but it needs to be an open discussion, not just an appointment, in my opinion. And I think that should be included in the bylaw. Or at least it should be up to the mayor to choose how they want to do it. But
So are you talking about the council rep to these committees, or are you talking about?
well, appointment of council representation to township advisory committees is what I'm talking about, which is what Donna was talking about.
Because we did not address that really at all in how that's done.
Okay.
We're more concerned about the citizen engagement, the citizen appointment. I don't think we put anything in here as to how that is chosen, other than. Oh, no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I lied. Section A, appointment of council representative to township advisory committees and organizations. Now, we could say shall be shall be recommended by the mayor and approved by council shall be probably yeah, I lied because that is so you want a discussion shall be discussed with the mayor and approved by council?
Yeah, I could be, I would like to see it as part of the orientation with the council. When a new council is, when a new council is brought in during the orientation period, then it should be that council should agree to the advisory committee assignments.
Now, everybody understands though, when the recommendation from the mayor comes forward at council, it's open for discussion, it's open for debate, and it can be changed and discussed at that point.
Well, no, I honestly don't understand that because it has come forward as this is the advisory committee appointments, and so it really never has been open or transparently open for debate. Let us put it that way. Councillor Dunsmore.
Yes, actually, Kirk, when we did do the advisory committees here, I recall we had to break and go into a closed meeting session to discuss several members on an advisory committee and some problems that some councillors had. So we did debate them, and then we approved them.
So, sorry, you're talking about citizen appointments, Neil, and I'm talking about council appointments.
Oh, you're talking about council appointments. Well,
That's still in the account.
I'd like to hear from the mayor on that, but I just think he should be appointing them.
Yeah, through you, Chair. This is one that's not that easy. 2018 was a pretty divisive election, and there's some direction that I put out there, and I campaigned on getting certain things accomplished. So appointments to committees are critical to that. And so that's where I feel like in my role as the duly elected head of council, it's incumbent on me to pursue what people voted me in to do. And so removing that ability for me to at least recommend who I would like to see in the different committee chairs, at least to recommend to council. Council always can turn around and vote me down. I mean, there's, whether you want to do that or not, that's up to councillors. And if when that comes to council as a recommendation from me and councillor says, no, we don't like what you've done here, you could blow the whole thing up. And so it's no different than anything else, but to take away the ability of the mayor of the day to put in place the individuals that he thinks would be best suited for a certain advisory committee, to me, that's part of the job of a leader. And to remove that and to just place that under the responsibility of council as a whole really takes away the mayor's ability to push ahead on certain things. And that's to me, I don't think that puts the mayor in a very, not talking about me right now, puts any mayor in a good situation where they can't pursue certain things and can't put in place the team that they think is the best team to move forward in different areas. So I like having the leeway. It gives council the check that council needs to have, but it provides the mayor with the ability to provide some leadership. So I think it balances things off the way it's written right now.
You didn't have your hand up there, did you, Andy?
No, I'm good, Kirk. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, obviously I disagree. I think that the discussion during the orientation is the fair way, particularly for new councillors who the mayor doesn't know yet and hasn't had an opportunity to work with. Orientation is the time when people can discuss the various options and express their interest levels, and everybody agrees on who should be on advisory committees. But eventually, I don't disagree that the mayor is going to make the ultimate decision on what goes forward, even if that discussion happens during orientation, and it has to be approved by council. But I think that it should be done during orientation, and it should be part of a discussion process, not an email saying you're appointed to this board or whatever. So that is my opinion, and it ain't going to change in a hurry. But we can, I guess, have that discussion when it goes forward to council. And then we may as well finish up with 3.02 while we're there, because there's a lot of comments on that part of it also. It's been touched on a couple of times now, which is the appointment of citizen members of advisory committees. And it actually came as a big surprise to me that it's recommended by the clerk in consultation with the managing director and approval by council. I didn't understand why the clerk is the one that recommends the advisory committee. And a lot of other people obviously didn't either. Or a few other people.
Through you, I think what legislative services generally does, puts the ad in the paper, receives the applications, sorts the applications, compiles the applications, and then generally has a conversation with the staff liaison or the managing director to that advisory committee, assuming council has already established its advisory committees after the election, determined which ones. We review the applications, which contain personal information, and often we do not receive an overflowing amount. It's usually barely meeting our minimums. So we compile that information, and staff provide the report, and council adopts the names. It is quite a common procedure. It's the same in many municipalities, that is staff's role, that is staff's job to compile that information and make recommendations based on the merits of the applications that we receive, and the citizens also indicate to us which committees they prefer, which ones they want to volunteer for, because they are volunteers. So we take a balance as to what they've asked to sit on, and what their interests and what their supporting credentials support that.
Okay. To me, it would make more sense for your office to do as they are doing, collecting the information and then bringing it forward to a closed meeting to discuss with council, to determine particular, because sometimes there are committee applications that outnumber the number of committee members. So I think it'd be a good idea to have that discussion in council versus in a closed meeting, I should say, with council. It's my thought. Neil?
I am good with staff correlating it, and I know they take the suggestions of the mayor, and then we vote on it at council if we've got any concerns about it. But you've got to give the mayor and Carrie says there's very few committees that we have an abundance of people, and I just think that we're making a mountain out of a molehill, and if we ever get to the point where we've got too many people, maybe we should change the process. But right now, to have staff solicit, and I know the mayor makes his recommendations to them as people to go on those committees, and I'm good with that.
Mayor Linton?
No, I'm okay with the process the way it is. I think, members of council always send send information out to people and get the interest level up on people that they think would be good in a certain role, and then it goes to Carrie and you know, they look at the qualifications, look at the different committee, and they make selections based on that. So to me, you know, that's a process, and then you know, it's again, it has to go through council approval. So I don't know how many times council has to see it. At that point, we can do what we did last time: go into closed session and have discussions about individuals, because it always has that touch point back to council. But not sure how much more council needs to be involved, except for making the recommendation at the end. And you know, we've been really fortunate as far as our advisory committees go. The last time around, we did have some pretty good uptake on the advisory committees, and they're doing some really good work. So something's working with the process the way it is. I hate to make modifications to something that's working, because getting some really good high quality people put their name forward and spend hours and hours of their volunteer times on these committees. So I don't, you know, if it's, I don't think anything's not working about the process the way it is. So there's nothing to me that says we should change it.
For clarification, 3.02B says that the appointment is by recommendation by the clerk in consultation with the managing director and approved by council. And Councillor Dunsmore just suggested that it's recommendation by the clerk and the mayor. Is that true? Or is it by the clerk and anyhow? Andy, you just had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, just for clarification, I think what Councillor Dunster is speaking to is the committee or the council committee appointments. That is through the mayor. The volunteers for the committees are made through the clerk and through the managing directors. If you recall, the terms of reference are the committees, the chairs, and those recommendations work through the managing director or the department head through the council, not through the mayor.
Okay. So based upon what I'm just hearing here, that the majority.
Sorry, Councillor McWing, can we just pause for a sec? Neil's been kicked off.
Oh,
so can we just take a 2-minute break and maybe use it to go to the washroom too?
Yep, sure.
Okay, good. And then give Neil a minute to get back on. I just noticed he just texted me and said, am I the only one that got kicked out? So I said, yes. So maybe we should wait for.
Okay, sounds fair. 2 minutes it is. We'll be back in 2 or 3 or whatever it takes. When you have a 3-person committee, having one of them missing is kind of a big deal.
Councillor McElwain, we're just trying to connect with Councillor Dunsmore to see what his technical issue is. Councillor McElwain, we're just trying to connect with Neil to find out what his issue is technically.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I noticed he's still not back, so I guess.
Yeah, we're just trying to hook up with him, see what his technical challenge is.
It's almost 4 o'clock anyhow, so.
Yeah, we'll should be able to hopefully resolve it in the next couple minutes.
While we're waiting for Neil, should we talk about a date for our next get together? Because it's obvious that there's still going to be lots to, the three big ones are still to be done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of them we kind of, some of them we crossed off, but we got a lot left to go with the councilor's comments, that's for sure. Yeah, it's just hard to do a date before Neil's on here. His internet went down, so he's trying to reboot, and if he can't get in, he's gonna have to call in.
I was just saying to Andy that it is almost 4 o'clock, so if we have to call it a day, we can call it a day today and schedule another meeting.
Yeah, we'll give him a few minutes, because maybe even if we could just schedule another meeting with him on, then maybe that's the only thing that we can do today.
Yeah.
Hear anything from Neil yet, Andy?
I just spoke to him by phone. His house internet went down, so he just rebooted and he's trying to get back into Zoom now. If not, he's going to call in on his mobile phone with Zoom.
Okay, so nothing.
We should hear from him in a minute or two, I think.
Okay.
Did you lose power in Laura and Fergus last night?
No, I hadn't heard, just in the Hydro 1 areas, not necessarily with CW Hydro.
Yeah, we were down for about 6 hours, I think, something like that. But
Wow.
Yeah.
finally, after I think it's over 2 years since we installed a backup generator, and finally we got to use it for an extended period of time.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's when you think about it, eh? When the power goes out and everything shuts down, like you can't flush your toilets, you can't do anything in the country. Our whole house is covered, so it's just. That's nice.
We had about a 15-second blip where there was no power, and then it came, everything back on just like it was for the evening, so it was good.
Where did you get yours, Kirk?
It's a company, he's up in Sophia. And I'm trying to remember Power something or other.
Oh, okay.
Gary Atchison is his name, but I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know who you mean. Huh.
Can you see me or hear me?
We can't see you or hear you, Neil.
There you go. That lets me know I'm doing well.
There you are. You're on your phone.
I'm on my phone because I've lost internet, so Bell to the rescue.
Okay.
So Whiteman has gone down here.
It's 5 minutes to 4, and we're scheduled to finish at 4.
Okay.
You want to just schedule the next meeting and?
Well, actually, Kirk, can I say something? I'd like to put a proposal out there if that's possible.
Certainly is.
Okay. So as a conflict guy, I've been sitting here reading all these things, and I've been watching all the councillor comments and a lot of the citizens' comments. And as a conflict guy, that's exactly what I see. Is a lot of old wounds and an old conflict being brought up. And the problem with that is, being a councillor, I can't help fix it. But in my training, I've got some ideas, and I'm wondering if I put a proposal out there, if the two of you would be interested in it, and see if we can't at least try to work through this issue. So what I'd like to propose is, we've got a lot of people talking about public involvement and a public process. I see a lot of conflict with staff where they don't trust staff, where some councillors don't trust staff, and where councillors don't trust councillors. So I'm thinking what we need is a third set of eyes, somebody who's versed in the legislation and has done this type of thing before. And then we can put forward a public meeting first. And I want to say that a public meeting should go first, where this individual can engage with the public and address their concerns, what is legal, what is not legal, what is right, what is wrong, what goes in a procedural bylaw, and then they can address council. And then council will be better educated. We'll understand whether the people that are coming at us in the public have a legitimate point or not. And then it's not staff making that decision as to what council sees. This is a third party that does that. And then we get better educated so that we can craft a bylaw that I believe will last for decades. Because right now, I think the rabbit hole we're going down, with the amount of what I see here as being underlying issues that have been there before and will come again, we're not going to put it to bed without that third party and that public process first, council second. Whether we do that the same day or whether we do it over 2 days, I don't think is an issue. But I want to run that by the members of this ad hoc committee to see if that's something that we think is viable.
Kelly, what are your thoughts?
I'm trying to wrap my head around how that would work. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, we've talked already about we have to take our time on this. We've gotten through a number of the citizen stuff pretty well as a committee on our own, but the tough stuff is yet to come for sure. Like my concern, like what I expressed right off the bat, hey, you can't have two votes on this, Neil.
Yeah, I'm just going to see
what you're
if
trying
I
to
can do
do.
the meeting properly, because I like to see all of you, not just one at a time on my screen. I will turn this on
Okay.
as soon as I come in via computer.
Yeah, that's fine. So one of the concerns I had off the top is that we're going through the process now as an ad hoc committee. My concern is that we still got to go to council, and I'm not convinced that we're not going to have all the same questions and the same things come up again about the legality or the best practice of some of the things that we're doing. And that is yet to come out here in the councillor comments. I think we're overreaching with this. I don't at all mind the process of bringing in somebody who actually knows what this is all about. I mean, there are people out there I know who doing procedural bylaws is what they do, and they might be able to answer the questions that we have for them and the public have for them in a very open and transparent way. and that might be, I'm not opposed to it on principle right off the bat, as long as we're okay with the timelines here. As long as it doesn't push things out, but I do think it's important for a full council to be able to ask some of their questions to somebody, and we can say, look, we have some issues with this here. What legally can we do? Or add this. The thing that I'm more concerned about is if we add this verbiage, or if we add these words to Center Waive's procedure bylaw, that this is somehow not going to be consistent with best practice, or is going to be legal at the end of the day. Like, that's my biggest concern. And so we haven't even started going down that path. We've crossed off some of the easy ones, but we haven't started going down through Councillor Kittrus's comments, Councillor Foster's comments. We have a lot to go through yet. And if I was Carrie, I'd want somebody in addition to her being the subject matter expert. So on the face of it, I don't mind it if we can find the right person and it works with their schedule. I don't know how it fits in with the ad hoc committee, because council's approved that. So we'd have to make sure that there's a clear role for the ad hoc committee to pull things together. But I'd be okay with pursuing the thought of somebody coming in and helping us out with this one, because I do see very, very difficult discussions yet to be had as a full council.
I would kind of been in agreement with a lot of comments where it would be good to have a public information session, and having an expert do a public event would help clarify a lot of what is legal, what is not legal, what should be in a procedure bylaw, and what should be someplace else, or where to find it if it isn't in the procedure bylaw, and probably help clarify a lot of the things. I found, to be honest, that the time we have had to date with the information that we received, I tried going through and trying to put stuff through in a pull comments from everybody's input and put it into the proper area in the actual draft bylaw, so that it's easier to follow. And some of them are too general to be able to do that really very well, and it just takes a lot of time. So going through it with an expert might be the best for everyone to understand better, give everybody some more background. I mean, the public and ourselves. So I have no problem with that at all, Neil. I think it's a great idea. I don't know. We don't really have a budget for this, so I don't know how we're going to do it, but or what the time frame would be, because I don't think we're going to have time to do it before budget time. So that's my only thoughts about it.
I would think that, December 14th is less than a month away, but we had delegations scheduled for that night anyway. And if we could find somebody that is open for that night, that could be the first start. Whether we do both that and the council portion of it at the same time, that could be up for flexibility. But we could do, both, and then council doesn't make their decision till February. But I would prefer we kind of get it all out of the way. But I really believe, and I've got a fair bit of experience at this, Kelly, that your answers and my answers are not going to satisfy some of the councillors, and Kirk, your answers aren't going to satisfy some of the councillors. And I know that pretty much anything that comes from staff and council isn't probably going to satisfy a lot of the members of the public. And so what I'm trying to do here is set up a system with this where the public gets their say and an outside expert can interpret that for them, because the last thing I want to do is to see our name next to Collingwood. because I did a lot of reading on Collingwood this weekend, and they're into a mess, and that cost them millions of dollars. And I want a procedural bylaw that doesn't allow us to make those same mistakes. So if you're in agreement with it, I would suggest that we make a motion to council and get council to approve it at the next council meeting, and then staff have the authority to go looking. Or does this ad hoc committee, Carrie and Andy and Lisa, do we have the authority to tell you to go looking for a third party with expertise?
No, you do not.
Well, thank you for your honesty. So then we can make a recommendation to council and have council make that
Yes,
motion.
only- Yeah, only council can give us that authority. I mean, I don't have that authority, nor does this committee. So what we could do is, this committee could make a recommendation that, you know, that a meeting be established, that an expert be brought in to walk us through, do a workshop slash public
Meeting. And to me, the very important thing here is that the public meeting go first, because then the public gets their say. The expert can interpret whether council should be listening to that or not. Is it going to be legal for us to do it or illegal for us to do it? And then we don't step on these minefields, and then do the workshop with council. So I would put that motion forward now. If the other two members of the committee are willing to vote on it, I would do that.
Okay, just for clarification, what I think we should do is we should let the expert give us the information that we need. And then council can ask questions, the public can ask questions, we can go back and forth, we can have that information sharing. And then from there, we can decide what council, meaning we, can decide where it wants to take the document. But I think we should just let the expert do his thing and not or her thing or whomever.
His or her thing, I'll take his or her guidance from it, but I just know that this is not going to be static.
Yeah, let the public interact with that individual. Let the public ask those questions. Let the public, let that individual respond, have that dialogue. And then I think everybody will be perfectly clear, maybe solicit comments again, knowing everybody's on the same playing field, everybody knows the rules, everybody is on the same page. Then we maybe can streamline the process and actually all be all on the same page. Yeah.
Carrie, just for clarification, it does include meeting with the public. Your suggestion includes meeting with the public, does it?
Well, it would be a council and you would accept delegations or you would, I mean, it would be through Zoom. So we'd have to structure it, but it would be an open workshop portion and then a public type meeting where everyone would have their say.
Okay.
We have to structure it like a meeting for sure.
Yeah.
And there would be an opportunity for that expert to interact with the questions of the public that come up in the delegations, because that's important to me, that they get a feedback from somebody other than us and our staff, because that is my perceived conflict here. And it's imperative that expert interact with the public properly.
Okay, and if I may, can I make a suggestion here too? The phrasing of the recommendation to council would be that the ad hoc committee recommends that the council of the Township of Center Wellington host a public meeting and workshop with the subject matter expert on the development of a procedure bylaw.
I would move that.
And I'll second it. All in favor? Kelly?
Yeah, I'm in favor. Can I just ask for one piece of clarification? I'm in favor of it though. But, so after this, and there is a better understanding, hopefully, from members of council about the direction, that gets fed back into the ad hoc committee, right? And then we continue with this, and then this committee though drives ahead and still provides recommendations back for council in February.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
well,
it doesn't mean our job is done.
I just didn't want to end this, right? Because this is what council directed us to do.
No, I think that's a good idea, Kelly. We've done some good work here today, and let's just carry on with it.
All
Okay.
right.
So that is, will that motion be coming forward to council then on our next meeting? I can't hear you, Carrie, all of a sudden. You're
Sorry.
muted.
We'll put that on the November 30th council meeting as this committee's recommendation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Andy, anything?
No, I'm fine. I think it's a good idea. I think we can search around for a couple of procedural experts. There's not a lot of them around, quite honestly. So we can search around and contact and pull together some timeframes and costs from that. As Councillor McElwain, through to your point about there's no budget, we'll look for a source of funding to be able to allocate that in order to get that the procedural bylaw to where it needs to be for council and for the public.
So just also for clarification, if we're bringing this forward November 30th, we're probably looking at not having our public meeting / workshop until February. I can't see having something ready for December 14th. That just realistically, that seems like a very short period.
Well, I think, Kirk, that goes to whatever consultant we're able to find, if they can put it together. That, it is COVID, and I know a lot of people aren't doing a whole lot in presentation world. So you never know. But if it gets put out, it gets put out. The important part, and I think you said it earlier in the meeting, is that we do this right. And if it takes us longer, it takes us longer. But let's do it right.
Yeah, I guess my comment. Sorry, Andy. I'll get back to you in a sec. It's not only getting the expert within 2 weeks. It's notification to the public within 2 weeks and getting them involved. It doesn't really give us much time there. I'm sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, thanks, Mr. Chair. My gut is saying that at the end of the day, there's not a lot of procedural work happening around the province right now with COVID. So that may be to our advantage of having a person come in and do this fairly quickly. The public, and to your point, Councillor McElwain, the public is already aware that we're doing something on December 14th with regards to the procedural bylaw. So that may be an advantage to us, the fact that it's just a change in what we would be doing. We'd still be looking for delegations coming to the December 14th. If we were able to pull that off, we would just communicate it to be, a presentation and delegation for public input into the procedural. So that word is already out about December 14th. So that if we can get a person in place, then that may be an advantage to us to have that discussion that we've already spoken about with council and for the public.
Okay.
No promises though. Just it's going to be a little bit of work to get it pulled together, but we'll start working on that. Even though we were not bringing it till November 30th, we can start asking around for some consultants or experts. And as I mentioned, there's not a lot of good quality procedural bylaw experts, so we'll have to make some calls this week.
The good news is that they don't have to leave home to do it.
You're right, Councillor McElwain.
Okay, well, that being said, I think we can probably call it a meeting. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
You got it.
And a seconder, Kelly, and meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.